Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well today. I am very, very excited for this. Let me change this. All right. Looks like we have a lot of people in the chat that are also very, very hyped about the stream today. Before we begin, though, I do want to introduce myself really quickly. My name is Abdullah. I am a coach at Major League Hacking. I've been doing streams for a while. And yeah, I'm very excited for today. Today we're going to be building an AI-powered chatbot using cloud services. So specifically, the cloud service that we're going to be using is AWS. um, so we're going to be using Lambda actually. Um, so it's going to be interesting. Some of you may have used it before, some of you may not have. Regardless, it should be a pretty interesting stream. But before we get started, I want to know a little bit about you all, right? So tell me, where in the world are you all tuning in from today? And you could just put it in the chat. Where in the world is everyone tuning in from? All right, we've got some people from Maryland. That's awesome. Nigeria. Okay. Sri Lanka. Okay, that might be the furthest one from me. I'm currently in Texas right now for some context. We've got Arizona in the US, North Carolina also in the US, and Atlanta. Okay. Oh, Australia. Okay, I think that one might be further than Sri Lanka. I'm not 100% sure which one is further. Uh, Slovakia. Okay. And Boston. Malaysia. Wow, we have people really from all over the world. That is awesome. Okay, great. So, great, great getting to know you all a little bit, right? Um, all right, we also have Canada here. That's awesome. Okay, that's awesome. So it's like 1 a.m. for some people. Currently for me, it's like 6:05 p.m. Um, so not too early, not too late, just the right time for me. And yeah, very much looking forward to this. So I guess just to dive right into it, we are going to be going over actually building an AI-powered chatbot. Um, we are going to go over what the AI chatbot is and some use cases for a chatbot. And by the end of this, you all should have a working chatbot deployed, ideally, right? Hopefully, that is always the goal. So we're just going to be going over actually setting up our environment really quickly at first, and then actually building the backend for the chatbot. So we're just going to be using Python for that. It should be very straightforward. We're just going to be using the Google Gemini API for access. And then we're going to be working on the actual cloud deployment part of it. So we're going to be deploying it to AWS Lambda. And then we're just going to be trying to interact with it from our local IDEs, from a command line interface. So nothing too fancy. And then at the end, we're also going to be talking about any other enhancements that we could be doing, scaling if we do have any time. And then at the end, it's just going to be a sort of wrap up, any Q&A if anyone has any questions. We're going to be going pretty slowly, not too fast so that everyone has a chance to catch up. And hopefully you should have a working chatbot by the end of this running in the cloud and understand if you did want to work on top of this, what else could you do? And then you'll also have some insights into improving and scaling the chatbot. All right. So before we get started, anyway, any questions like right off the bat? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So let me set my screens up so that I have everything working fine. Okay, so we're going to be doing quite a bit here. All right, so we're going to be using AWS Lambda. So you do need to create an AWS account if you haven't already, and we will be walking through that. We're also going to be using roles specifically to make sure that we're not, we're containing the application and we're not just using, if we have some error, we're not accidentally killing everything else that we might have in AWS. And then we'll just sort of take it step by step. And again, if you do have any questions, please do put it in the chat. and I will do my best to help. All right, let's get started then. So the first thing I would like for you all to do is actually go to AWS and create an AWS account if you haven't already. So let me share my screen. Okay, we do have a few questions right now. First one is it all under the free tier? Yes, everything is under the free tier. Actually, fun fact, I initially planned out this entire stream using GCP, that's Google Cloud, and then I looked at it and I was like, okay, great. I'm out of free credits. I think they have a $300 free credit limit. And I was completely out. So I was like, all right, I don't want anybody else to spend money. I don't want to spend money. So we'll use AWS instead. So then I did a little pivot. So yeah, everything should be under the free tier. You will not have to pay for anything. You don't need to enter your credit card or anything at all. And then can I please repeat the tools and languages we'll be using? So we'll be using AWS, so Amazon Web Services. We will also be using Python. And honestly, that's pretty much it. It should be very simple, very straightforward. My first name is someone's official last name. Cool. All right. Um, okay, so first thing that we all need to do, and I could share my screen for this. There we go. All right, I'm going to log out and then just log back in so that you all can see how this sort of is going to look. I think this is a little small right now. Let me try moving myself to the corner. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Okay. I will walk through signup. So signup should be pretty straightforward. You just need to hit sign in, sign into the console, and then you will need to create a new AWS account if you don't have one already. Honestly, I think I'll just create a brand new one with a different email that I have. So let me figure out which email address I want to use for this. Do this on the side. Okay, I know which one I'm going to be using. So you just want to enter an email address over here. So, oh, is this frozen? It is frozen. Okay. There we go. So you just want to create a new AWS account using this right here. And let me send this link in the chat for anybody who might need it. And again, just a quick call out, if you haven't already, do make sure to register for this event or check into this event so that you get the credit for it. And the link for that is right over here as well. So you can do that as well before you sign up for AWS. And again, it has a very generous free tier. You can actually go to this link right here, aws.amazon.com/free, and it'll go through everything they have in their free tier. Today, we're not going to be using too much of it, right? We're just using one very specific thing that Amazon has to offer. So that is what we're going to be focusing on. And again, for sign up, just enter your email address and enter a name, and then you'll want to verify that. So I'm going to do that really quickly with, let's see what email I want to use for that. And you can enter in any account name you want, and then just click on verify email address. You'll get a security verification pop-up, which is going to just ask you to do the CAPTCHA. This is a very difficult one for some reason. Okay. And then it's going to send you a verification code, so you will need access to that email. And then you just want to go to your email and grab that verification code. And then you can just paste it. And it'll ask you to enter a password. And I'm just going to use the same one as my other account. so as to not have to worry about remembering too many different passwords. And you all can just click on personal when you're signing up for AWS, and then it's going to ask you for some contact information. You can just fill that out and agree to the terms and conditions. And that should be it. All right, no worries if you're running behind. Again, that's why it is all recorded, so it should not be an issue. As of right now, you should not be able to see my screen. I was just entering in a bunch of information. So I was just keeping that hidden. But again, once you are done, you should go to your console home, which looks something like, and now I'll be presenting my screen. Something like this. So this is what you should be looking at after you've gone through your entire process. All right. And once you are here, please do let me know. That way I have an idea of where everyone's at and we can move forward. Okay, looks like we have some people that are ready. Okay, let me move myself to the bottom corner again so I'm not blocking everything. Okay, next up, you all want to go to the IAM page. That's if you click on these 9 boxes over here and click on IAM, then you should be taken to this IAM page, which is asking for my credit card. Interesting. It did not do this last time. Let's see. Is this free account valid for a year? It should be free for forever. As long as if you don't use it, then it's free for forever. It looks like you do need to put in the credit card information in the free tier. That's interesting. I avoided using Google Cloud for just this reason, and it is asking me to do that over here. So that is unfortunate. It looks like we might have to use it. IAM, if you look for IAM, that is, let me go back to here. If you are at the console home, you click on these 9 boxes, and then you can just click on IAM right here underneath Lambda. It should be under recently visited, or you should be able to search for it as well, IAM, and it should be up here. All right. So unfortunately, it is looking like you will need to complete registration using a credit card, which I was hoping would not be the case. But here's something we can do. Yeah, it looks like all major cloud providers do ask for credit card information, which does make sense. They don't want a bunch of bots stealing everything. So, okay. I did enter my credit card information, so now this is what it should look something like. Um, yours may or may not look a little different. If you do want to enter your credit card information, go ahead. AWS again does have a free tier, so you will not be charged for anything that you'll be doing during this specific workshop. But um, again, if it is completely up to you, some of you may not have a credit card. In that case, you can just follow along with me. All right. So let's go to IAM, and then currently have some things that are running right now. But what we want to do is go to roles over here, roles, and what we're going to be doing is create a new role for our specific project that we're going to be using. So over here in roles, I'm going to want to create a new role. All right. And again, if I'm going too fast, please do let me know. But you want to create a role, and then under this trusted entity type, just make sure AWS service is selected. And then for the use case, we're just going to select Lambda. So we're just going to be using Lambda functions. And then next. Then for permissions and policies, we want two specific policies. We want AWS Lambda basic execution role. And then we want the API gateway administrator. So that's Amazon API gateway administrator role. So these two are the ones that should be checked. Again, Amazon API gateway administrator and Lambda basic execution role. Let me check if Lambda is checked. Yes, it is. All right, and I'm gonna just give it full access because just in case. And then for the role name, what should I have this role called? We'll just call it Global Hack Week, GHW. Okay, and then description can be anything. Select trusted entities are fine. Adding permissions, these permissions look good. And we just want to then actually create the role. All right, so now we have our new role called Global Hack Week, or GHW, created. And then we can actually go into our terminal or into our IDE and start working with this. So somebody asked, can you please see again where IAM is located? Yeah, for sure. So if you click on this up here, you can see this like tiny little search tab at the top. Let me see if I could zoom in a little bit. You can either click on this and then, or you can search for IAM. And then this very first one should show up under services, IAM. You can click on that. And then you want to go to roles over here. So you click on roles and then you create a new role. And then again, make sure that the service is selected, the use case is Lambda, and you are checking at the very least. I'll put it in the chat, that way it does not disappear. AWS Lambda basic execution role and the gateway administrator role. So these are the two that you will need to, or that you want to add. All right. Now that we've done that, we actually want to open up our IDE. So if you all do have Visual Studio Code, that's great. If not, I highly recommend downloading Visual Studio Code. But if you don't feel like it, or you don't want to, you don't have enough space, whatever the reason might be, you can also do this on any other IDE. I would recommend Visual Studio Code just because it's the easiest to use. But again, if you don't feel like it, that's perfectly fine. And I'm just going to create a new folder. So we have a question again, how to find IAM. Again, you can just search for it at the top, and that should take you to there. If you're at the console, you should be able to search for it, and it'll get you there. All right. Now I'm going to open a new folder called Chatbot. Yeah, you'll want to create a role under IAM. And again, if you did miss it, I recommend actually scrolling back, and you can actually go back in the Twitch or in YouTube, and you should be able to also see where I went through the full IAM process. But for the sake of time, we do need to move forward, so that is what we will be doing. Okay, next up, let me stop screen sharing here and start sharing. Where is, there it is. Okay, so I have Visual Studio Code open, and over here is where we're going to be doing basically everything else for most of this workshop. So we have a role, we know all of that, and now what we want to do is just create a new file. So we're going to create a new Python file, and we can name that Lambda function. So let's create a new file, Lambda function, do underscore .py. And over here is just going to be a pretty quick script, right? And this is just going to be what's calling our Gemini key, essentially. So it should be pretty straightforward. Let's write it up. And again, if you do have any questions about this, do let me know. But if not, again, it's import JSON. So again, all we're doing over here is trying to make our actual chatbot backend, and then import OS, import requests, and import from typing. Now, Gemini, I spelled Gemini wrong. Oops. Equals the API key, and then we have our API secret, or we do not need an API secret, we need our URL. API URL is, don't know if this is the correct URL, but we'll come back to that. And then we want to actually have a conversation as well. So let's do memory is a dictionary, strings. And then we're going to have our actual chat function. And this is just where we are going to be putting in all of our query information. So we have our query, which is a string, and our user ID. Which is also a string. Then let's see. We can add some error handling. So if not Gemini API key, then the API key is not set. return this as an exception. Raise. Okay, let's make sure there's no questions so far. Oh, cannot see my screen. That is very, whoops. Okay. My bad. So I was just flying through it, but I didn't do too much. Um, let's see. Again, import JSON, import just a bunch of import statements. Then we're setting our Gemini API key over here, and we'll be getting that shortly. So don't worry. We will be, grabbing that, and I'll be walking through the steps for that as well. And then we have a conversation memory and all the other information over here. And this is not correct so far. So this is all I have. All right. My bad. I was not showing that for a while. Okay. And let me move myself down to the corner again so this is more visible. And again, if you do need me to zoom in or anything, please do let me know. Hopefully that is legible enough for all of you. Again, all we have right now is the Lambda function Python script and this so far. The two rules for IAM, I did copy and paste those earlier, so you should be able to scroll up and you should be able to see those in the chat. All right, so we have this, and then set our headers to content type as application. We need this to be JSON, and then okay. Previous context, and this is just going to be everything from the memory. So it's convo memory.get the user ID and anything that's empty, and then the prompt text is going to be the previous conversation, previous context, and then add the user query. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? How did I go from AWS to VS Code? So VS Code is a separate part of the app. Again, this is like it was mentioned later on. Again, we're just doing development work here. So this is what is going to be going into AWS pretty soon. We're just writing the backend for it. So you can either download the VS Code app, or if you have another IDE that you use where you code in Python, that one should also work perfectly fine. All right. Payload is going to be the prompt with the prompt text, and then the key. We do not need a max number of tokens. This should be good. And response is request.post with the Gemini API URL /chat JSON payload with the correct headers. And then if response status code is not 200, then failed to actually get the response. Response data is the response. Text is choices. Get, and then we just want to update the actual conversation. So conversation memory is previous conversation plus the bot response. Previous context, user query. And then okay, there we go. So again, I feel like I'm not explaining this enough. Basically, what we're doing here is just creating the chat backend functionality, right? So this is just saying that everything is going to be in a JSON format. The previous context of everything is what we're sort of collecting. And again, this isn't normally how you do it if you were doing it in a production environment, because then it would be a lot larger. So in this case, we're basically just having a dictionary, and we just keep adding the prompts on top of, or behind each other, or on top of each other. So as you can see, the conversation memory is actually being updated using this sort of previous context, and then you're adding on whatever the query is from the user and whatever the bot response is at that time. So that's all we're doing here. And then we just want to return the bot response. And now this is where we're going to be doing the actual Lambda handler work. So for Lambda, we're just going to have a try catch, just because it might be easier. And we have our body is JSON loads, the query itself, which is the query, and then the user ID, which is the user ID. And then if not, if there is no query, then say that there is, we need a query parameter. Result is the running the chat between the query and user ID, and then return a 200 if that works successfully. Otherwise, raise a 500 exception saying that this thing did not work. And honestly, that is pretty much it. So again, pretty straightforward code right there. Oh my goodness, the screen turned off again. How did that happen? All right. My bad. This happened twice already. Okay. So hopefully this is now visible, right? um, I think it might actually be much faster if I did send this file to you all. So honestly, let me upload this to GitHub really quickly, and then I will send this to you all. That way you don't need to copy and paste everything from scratch. All right. So let's do that. In the meantime, any questions? Someone said, "We really don't want us to hack him." Yeah, I think that would be more fun, but it's Global Hack Week. I do need a second monitor, yes. Actually, I have a second monitor. The issue is that I'm on an older Mac, which doesn't allow for more than one monitor being connected at a time. So it's unfortunate. Yes, I will share the code. Let me upload it to GitHub really quickly. We're gonna speed run a GitHub upload, and then you all should have access to it. Git init. Let me see if I still remember all these. Okay, good. Git add. And then I need to set a remote. So create a new repository. What should we name this repo? Lambda. We'll just name it Global Hack Week Cloud. No template, public, no readme, no git ignore, no license. Okay. Okay, now you all should have direct access to all of this code, which is good because we are starting to run short on time. Okay, so here here's the GitHub. So definitely get the code from here. Try not to write it all from scratch because that will take a while. All right, here is all the code. And again, if I don't know if so, my screen ever stops showing, then yeah, I'll hop back onto here more often. Okay, so now we all have access to the code, which is great, very useful. Next up, we're going to actually be going through the cloud deployment part of it, which is the real fun part, which is what you all are here for. Actually, wait, we cannot do that yet. We need to get our Gemini API keys. So let's actually start with that then. So if everyone goes to ai.google.dev, that is ai.studio.google.com. That's another way to get there. And let me share this. Okay, there we go. So you can see my screen, hopefully, right? And basically, we're going to be using Google Gemini. And the reason we're using this is because it's completely free, right? We don't need to pay for this, and you actually don't need to input any credit card for this one. I know that for a fact. So what we're going to be doing is going to this little button right here where it says get an API key. It's blue, it's on the top left-hand corner. So just click on that, and all you want to do is click on create an API key, and then you can either create a new project or just use another one. I'm just going to use some random, let's say, Chatbot, why not? And then create an API key in this project. It's going to generate an API key and then output one. I just exposed it to the public, which is very unfortunate. I'm going to need to delete that later, but you get the point, right? Essentially, what you're trying to do is get that API key so that you can use it in your application. So hopefully everyone was able to get that. And then you want to go right back to your Visual Studio Code. Add that. Move myself to the corner. Okay. And honestly, you're supposed to, best practices are to obviously, add it to your environment or do something else. I'm going to explicitly define it here, which is again, not something you should be doing, but something I'm doing for the sake of time and because it is lower effort. All right, now we have our API key and we could test this if we wanted to. Let me actually quickly write up a test script. You know what? I already have a test script. Why don't I just use that? File, we call this main.py, even though this is not the main one that we're using. That is my old API key. Erase this. And this is me creating a virtual environment so that I don't need to worry about it installing everything to a global environment because I'm already running very low on storage space. So this is how you do that if you ever wanted to know. Source venv/bin/activate, and then pip install requests. Okay, and then we can run python 3 main.py, and hopefully this will work. Permission denied, unregistered callers without an established identity, API URL. Okay. Someone asked if they can use Python idle since you don't have VS Code. I'm not sure what Python idle is. Let me check. But if it is an IDE, like a Python IDE, then you should be able to use it. Python idle, editor and shell. Yeah, that should be perfect. It's an editor and a shell. That's all we really need. Hides everything, then reveals everything. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll be better about this. I will reveal everything sooner, or in smaller increments. But Gemini API key. Yeah, you could do this and set a variable in the .env file and assign the API key. For that, you will need a .env, DOTENV, as well, and then actually load that environment file up. So that is a slightly different process. You will require a little bit more. But if you do want to do that, let me know and I can help you, or I can walk through that as well. All right. Where were we? Oh yes, unregistered callers. Okay, I think it's working. The issue is just the way that I wrote the code. So that is fine. We don't need to worry about it right now. All right, great. So I will give you all about 5 minutes to catch up if I'm going too fast, or to just get up to speed with all of this. Again, this is the Lambda function right here. We don't need to worry about the main.py. We're not worried too much about the venv right now. And basically what we're going to be doing in the next section, or the next portion of this workshop, is actually deploying this to the cloud. So it may or may not be exactly this file, right? You can deploy other files to the cloud as well. And it is a bit of a tedious process. So that's going to require a lot of typing. I'll probably just create a new file here, which is just going to be called commands. And this is just going to be all the commands that we use. And I'll be pushing this to GitHub after, or actually while I'm going through this. That way you all won't be behind and you don't need to type everything up from scratch. You can just copy paste it directly from here. So that should go a little bit faster. All right. But again, what we did for this first part was create the lambda function.py file. So this is essentially what's handling everything. It's going to be our backend that we're using to use Gemini with. And then we're going to, next up, deploy that to AWS. All right. So I will let you all go for a quick water break, right? And we will come back in about 10 or so minutes. In the main.py is just a test that I was doing to make sure that the API key worked. think it does work. I think I just butchered this URL. Let's try this. Maybe that was the issue. v1/chat. Okay, I need to figure out what the correct API URL is, but once we get that, then we should be good. But this is all that's in there. All right, I will let you all go then for the next 10 minutes, so we can come back in 10 minutes, right? For me, that is at 6:58. For you all, that may be slightly different. All right, I will see you all then. All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes for a few more people to join in. Anyone who might have left while we're on break. Let's see if there's any questions in the meantime. What is in the main.py? Okay, yeah, this was in the main. Let's see, and where can you find the correct URL API? Okay, so this is actually not correct. I'll do a refresh on this and then push the changes to GitHub so that we have access to that. And all right, sounds good. Thank you so much for joining, right? And yeah, hopefully I'll see you at one of the future streams. I do have one coming up tomorrow and another technical one on Monday. And then I'm also doing Today in Global Hack Week on Sunday. So if you want to come to any of those, I will hopefully see you there. So you're getting this 400 error for invalid API. Yeah, it seems like the code itself was incorrect. I'm going to check some things. Hopefully get those working. Let me move myself again to the bottom and okay, I'm going to test this right here, which is client is GenAI dot client with API key equal to key. I will update that in a bit, and then response is clients dot model dot generate content 2.0 flash hello world, and then we can just print this, and then let's see what the key that I had here was. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll figure this out in a second, but in the meantime, yeah, let me upload this to GitHub. Git add. Let me remove my API key from here so that no bots end up stealing it. And it is not in here either. Okay. And changes. Just leave this super broad and git push this, and that should all be uploaded now. Okay, so everything should be on GitHub, and now we will continue working with this right here. Okay, now what we need to do is actually go into and start doing our Lambda stuff, right? So again, I have my commands file over here, which I'm going to keep on updating and pushing to GitHub. So this is going to be a lot of commands that are just going to be sort of coming at us. So we're going to take this step by step. All right. And again, if you do have any questions, please do let me know. I know it is unfortunate the way I only have like one real functional screen right now. So um, I will be checking the chat as often as possible. Okay. So now that we've all created a role in our AWS accounts and we have our Lambda function .py, what we want to do is actually publish or push our Lambda function as an AWS function, right? As a Lambda function. So to do that, we actually need to, let's see, do a good number of stuff. Let's see. Any other questions? Want to have some oats? Don't know what that means. And yeah, you're welcome. Okay, great. Yeah, so we will now just be pushing all of this stuff to our sort of Lambda. All right. And the way we want to do this is by going through a good number of steps. Okay. So most of this is going to be happening in the terminal. So I do want you all to open up the terminal if you haven't opened it already. Again, you can either just drag that up from the top or go up here, click on terminal, and then new terminal. Okay. Next up, what we actually need to do is we need to package our Lambda function, right? So let me exit out of the virtual environment. And again, this is how I'm opening up a terminal. I'm just dragging it up from the top. And over here, we just want to zip our function dot zip lambda function dot py. So we're just zipping up our lambda function dot py into a zip folder called function dot zip. And you can see now it is all zipped up. All right. Now we actually need to download AWS as a command itself, right? So there's different ways of doing this. I'm not sure how many of you all are on a Mac or on a Linux versus on a Windows machine, but the actual process will differ slightly depending on your machine. So I will put in the link to download everything in the chat. Do that really quickly. Okay. So if you are on a MacBook, you want to use this specific command to install. Otherwise, if you are on Windows, you want to download the actual command line interface from Amazon. So let me put this into the chat. Again, this is the link you'll be using to download the CLI. Otherwise, let me push this, git add, what is this, commands. Okay, that should have added, I'm not sure if it did, to git push. Okay, now I think it would. Oh, I didn't save this. Great. Let's try that again. Yeah, there it is. And git push. For Windows, I just sent the link. You will need to download the command line interface from aws.amazon.com/CLI. All right. And that might take a second again to actually download this. I'll just show it on my machine. I already have it, so it shouldn't do too much, but you should be able to see it. It's just going to install everything right here, and then it's going to ask for your password. I am probably not going to enter it because I already have it, but then it's just going to finish the installation. And once you have finished the installation, please do let me know. That way I know when to start moving forward. The next command you'll want to run once you've done that is AWS configure. And this is just going to be configuring all of your your AWS information so that you're able to use the command line interface and interface with everything else. So for AWS configure, it's going to ask you for some information, specifically your access key ID, your secret access key, the region that you want to use, and the output format. So that will be done if this thing loads. Okay, there we go. So this one, again, it's asking for the access key. I already have it loaded, and the secret access key, I have that loaded as well. The region name, I have that loaded, and the default output format, I have that loaded. So there is no issue there. I already have that set up, but we'll walk through that as well. Let's see, you said you are 5. It looks like they cannot find the download for Windows. It should be on the link that I sent you. Was it not there? Okay, this user guy should give you some information. Okay, yeah, looks like it was already sent. Perfect. All right. Okay, great. Yeah. So you just want to install that. And once you have it installed, you want to run AWS configure and then configure it with all the information. Now, the information might be a little hard to find. So let's walk through how to get that together. Um, I will go back to here and share my screen again. So we left off with the role creation over here, right? Now, honestly, you can go back to anywhere. Let's leave this. And you'll want to get your actual information. So to get your information, what you want to do is go to your profile, click on your account. This is your account ID. You just want to go to your account, okay? And then your scroll down a little bit, you can see all the different AWS regions. So whichever one's closest to you is the one that you should use. Um, so I'm using the one on the east because I'm closest to that one. And I just leaked all of my personal information. That is completely fine. But you basically want to go here and get your AWS access key and your secret key and your default region, and then just paste that. All right. Okay, so were you all able to get that? Again, it's your account ID. You just typing in AWS configure once you have all of that installed, and then you should be able to get all the information. And I will just wait until at least one person says that they were able to get it working so that we are not talking to nobody. So to find the AWS access key ID, you'll want to go to your account, and then you should be able to get it from there. So your profile. So your account ID is the 12-digit number that's listed in your account settings. So if you go to there, then you should be able to get that. It's 12 digits long. Okay, and again, do let me know when you are able to get that and have finished the setup. Okay, we'll give it a couple minutes. So if you go to the top right hand corner of your screen, it should have your name or your user ID. Then you can go down to the last option, which is security credentials. And that should be where the access key ID is. So it's going to have this thing called access keys. You may need to create an access key if you don't have one already. and then you just want to click on create access key, and then it's going to tell you, yes, I understand creating a root access key is not best practice, just because we're doing that for, temporarily just for this. And then you'll want to create the access key, and it'll give you an access key and a secret access key. And those are the two that you need to use. You can download a CSV file of that as well if you choose, if you want to. And then once you get that, then you should be able to paste those in, and that's it. So again, your access key ID is what it asks for first. Then it asks for your secret access key. Those are both you can get both of those from there. Then the default region name is just whatever region you're closest to. I just use US-East-1. That's the one that I'm closest to. You can use whichever one you are. And then for the default output format, you just want to use JSON. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. And once you have that working, then you should be good to move forward. And we'll just wait a few more minutes, make sure everyone's good to go. And someone asks, where is the secret access key? The secret access key you should get that when you get the access key as well. So there shouldn't be any output format. You just need to paste it in here. So again, the secret access key is, if you go to your security credentials under IAM or under wherever, you just need to go to, again, the top right, wherever you are on your AWS instance, then click on security credentials, scroll down to access keys. And then if you create an access key, then you should be able to, you should get the access key ID and then the secret ID as well. And there's no specific output format that you need it in. You just need to paste it in there. It should be good. And as soon as any of you'll have that working, do let me know so that we can keep moving. Okay. The workshop ends in about 40 minutes, 40 minutes. Might end a little bit sooner, but it cannot end later than that just because we might have another one right after. So for me, that would be 8 p.m. For you, that might be a different time. So when do you know it's working? If you didn't get any errors, then it should be working. And again, you will get an error when if it's not configured correctly and you run the next command. So that's the best way to check. So we can actually move to the next command then, which is, again, this one's a little bit lengthier. Whoops, this is not what I was looking for. But this is to actually create a new Lambda function. So this is right here. And you just want to rename your function name here, and then your account ID over here, and then your role name here. All right, and then this is the zip file, so let's copy this and then paste this, and you should be able to, okay, let me change this runtime to 3 dot, what am I on, 13. And if I copy and paste this and try running this, then it should hopefully create this new Lambda function without giving me an error. And if it does work, it will give me an error because I did not configure it correctly. But let me actually push this. Add, what is this? What's it taking so long? Oh, get add. Oh, I guess it's too late now. Hopefully it pushes everything properly, otherwise it's going to be unfortunate. Okay, great. I was able to push it. So what we're going to be doing now here is replacing this with whatever our function name is, our account ID is, our role name is, and then we just go from there. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? After configure, workshop end. See the account ID but cannot find access ID. So for access ID, honestly, I'll just share my screen. Then I might have to take this down later on, just because that is. Okay, let me delete this. Enter the access key ID in the input field. Deactivate it, and then just copy paste this. Hopefully that's enough to delete. Okay, perfect. So, okay, perfect. You see it. All right, nice. That is good. Don't see another session after mine. Okay, that's good. So I might be able to go a little bit over time. Again, I will be available in the Discord to help out if anyone does need any help. Do just ping me, right? It's Abdullah from MLH on the Discord. So if you have any other questions, please do reach out and I will be able to help you out. So don't worry. You do need to go now. Thanks for the event. It was kind of great. Thank you for coming, right? Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. And hopefully I'll see you at one of the other events that I have. Yeah, it is under security creds. All right, great. So you're able to get that. And I pushed this to the GitHub, so you should be able to access that as well. So what I'm going to be doing is just copy, actually, I'm just going to update this. So my function name, what do I want my function name to be? Let's make it Global Hack Week, GHW. My account ID. So this is the account ID, which you get from your, profile. So you can honestly just go to click on your name at the top right-hand corner, and then you should be able to get to your account ID directly from there. So this is my account ID, and then my role name. I forget what role name I set for this. I think it was also something similar to Global Hack Week or GHW. So let me go find that. And yes, it is GHW. So my role name is going to be GHW. All right. And this is what I'm going to be using. And when I run this, hopefully it should create a new Lambda function. And we can see that we are getting some output. It did create this function. So that is good. That is very good. Functions being created at 512 size. Okay, so this basically saying that, all right, everything worked as expected. Great job, right? So if yours looks something like this, that is where you should be. That means you're doing everything correctly. All right, so this was again just step one to actually create the Lambda function. And then we want to verify that the Lambda function actually did get created. So we can run a list functions And that should show the functions that we have. I have a few others as well that are running, so don't worry about those. The one that we're looking for is GHW. That should be this next one. And yeah, so we can see that we have a function name called GHW, and that means that we were able to successfully create our Lambda function. All right, so that is awesome. Next up, what we are going to be doing is creating a REST API, right? We do need to be able to interact with this Lambda function somehow, and the way we're going to be doing that is using an API. So for that, we can create a REST API, and let's name this Global Hack Week API. Ooh. API. All right, there we go. So AWS API Gateway, create REST API with this specific name. And then that should also give us a positive result. Okay, perfect. So that gave us this output right here. And what we need from this is the API ID. So we're going to be saving this separately. And let me make a new file for this, secrets. And this is our ID for that. And I will push the commands to GitHub so you all have access to that as well. Git add commands. Make sure this is saved actually. Yep. New commands. And push this. Okay, so you should all have access to these now as well. And again, I'm just saving this into my secrets file so it's not publicly available on GitHub. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions in the chat. All right, looks like everyone's doing okay. I'm not seeing any questions so far. So we have our ID over here, and we're going to need to use this specific API ID next, actually. So now that we have our REST API created, what we need to do is get the root resource ID. So again, we're using a root user account. That's obviously not best practice, right? You'd want to create a separate user account that has very controlled permissions, isn't able to access everything, and you just give it those permissions. That's like best practices in security, obviously, right? Is to sort of give the least amount of access possible or needed for something to do its job. In this case, that would be making a very specific user that can only access sort of the stuff that we defined in the beginning of the stream. But of course, that isn't exactly possible with where we're at right now. And it does result in a lot more errors and confusion. So we're opting for something a little bit more streamlined. Next, you want to actually have open up the API gateway. So again, this is using the REST API ID that we created earlier. So REST API ID, and then we get that from the secrets. That is this ID right here. And this is actually going to give us another output with the root resource. So hopefully this works. API gateway, yes. And then this gave us a new ID and the path. So this is also, we can just add this to our secrets because it'll be more convenient to use. Okay. And then once we're done with this, we've created an API gateway. Then we actually want to create a resource for the chatbot next. And for that, we're going to need to use the resource ID and the API ID. So let's go back to the commands and paste that in here. The API ID and resource ID need to be pasted. So I will do that in the command line itself. And again, the path part is the path that we're in right now. That it was actually GHW chatbot. So GHW-chatbot. And then the resource ID is the one that we got earlier, and the API ID is the one that we got first. So this right here is our resource ID, and our API ID is up here in our secrets. And then that gives us this output right here. And we want to save this into our secrets as well. And this we're going to be using to actually create our post method. All right, so let me go back and actually publish these commands. That way you all have access to those. Then I'll git add commands, commit, resource. Oops. There we go. Okay, so that should all be updated, and let me check the chat in case there's anything in there. All right, looks like it's pretty quiet in the chat right now. That's good. I don't know if that's a good sign. Hopefully that just means everyone's working. Trying to get done with this. So again, everything is now up on the GitHub as well, right? Next, what we want to do is create a post method. So this is the method that we're actually going to be interacting with, right? So in this case, we have our API gateway again, and this is our put method. We're just going to put in our API resource ID again, and again, the type of method and authorization type. We're not going to have any right now. Normally, if you were making like an actual application, you'd have some sort of authorization, whether that's they've signed in or their API key or something, but we are not using that right now. So let me paste this in here and update the resource ID and the API ID. So let's do that. So again, this resource ID is actually the new resource ID that we just created over here. So we're going to be using that. Let me actually make that your new resource ID. That way it's explicit. And then our API ID is again the original one that we got all the way in the beginning. And let's use this. Okay. And that should give us this right here, this output. And again, it's just saying this is what they created, HTTP method post with no authorization and no API key required. So this is exactly what we're looking for. And then let me save this and, oh, what just happened to that? Did I just delete that? No, I did not. Okay, let me just push that. Add git commit post. And git push. Okay. I am not seeing anything else in the comments. Again, probably a good sign. That means my screen is still visible. And okay, the last step then is to actually integrate with Lambda. All right, and this is probably going to be one of the more difficult parts, but again, all you're doing here is a put integration, right? Where you have to add your API ID, your new resource ID, not the old one. Let me make that clear again. And this is going to be a post method. And over here, we just need to replace this sort of path, right, with whatever our path is. So for me, that would be, you just want to copy the ARN from your role. And I will show you all how to do that. ARN here. And again, this will be different depending on what your location is as well. So your API gateway, your location might change. So let me change this to your location here, and then Lambda path this, and then ARN here with the invocations. Okay. And then let's actually run this, but it is going to be difficult to do this all in the command line. So what I'm going to do is push this first, and then I will just make the changes in commands and then undo them. I put integration and push. Okay. Now we need our API ID, so I can go to the secrets and grab that from here. The resource ID, which is this right here. And our ARN, my location is US East 1, so US-East-1. And then Lambda path is all good. Then the ARN. So again, the ARN in my instance is going to go to my roles and find it. Stop sharing real quick and show this. Share my screen. In this IAM share. Okay, there we go. So this is, again, the role that we created called, in my instance, Global Hack Week. And this right here is the ARN that we're looking at. So this is the one that you need to copy. All right, so again, you just want to go back to the roles right here, which you went to when you were creating the specific role. And then you can find it over here. My max session duration is a little too low. Let me actually up that to 2 just in case. And then copy this in case anything changed. All right. Now I will stop screen sharing and share my VS Code again. Okay, so my ARN is going to be right here. Again, this is my user ID role, and then invocations. And then I just want to copy paste this into the command line and run this. And that did not work. Invalid Lambda function. Under functions, okay. Where did I go wrong here? Functions, AWS, IAM. Okay, this is the wrong ARN. All right, the one that we did need to use was for Lambda, for the function itself that we created, which in this case was GHW, I think. Try to find it. WAPI. Okay, yeah, it was just GHW. So I have my ARN AWS, and then Lambda at US East. And then account ID, and then function, and then the specific function, and then invocations. I believe this was in, let's see if I can find this. Uh, Okay, yeah, here it is. So my bad, I showed you all the wrong thing. Ask Gemini. That is a good question. Okay, in this case, it is ARN before invocations, and there we go. So what it actually is, oh, I was not sharing anything again. Great. But okay, right when I did this, share my screen again, GHW functions. Okay. So you want to go to the Lambda functions instead. And again, I have a bunch of functions over here, but the one that I created most recently was, and I'm not sharing again. There we go. All right. So again, we have a bunch of functions over here, but this is the one that I created most recently. So this one is GHW, which is the one that we created, and you just want to copy the function ARN. I accidentally got the role ARN, that was incorrect. You want to get the function ARN, and this is what should work. You just copy the ARN, and that should, and paste that into where it says ARN here. All right. And let me like triple check that my correct screen is being shared this time. Okay, there we go. So now that we have this, this should hopefully work correctly as the Lambda function we are focusing on. And yes, it did. Okay, awesome. So you can see that it gave us this correct output right here, timeout, and URI, HTTP method, all this information, which is great. We're probably not going to need anything from here, but just in case, we might as well dump it into our secrets file. And let me undo everything here. And ARN, let's do function ARN. ARN here. Okay. So now we have this working, and we saw that we were actually able to see the Lambda function in our AWS console. So if you go there again, actually what you'll see is something pretty interesting. Share screen, functions, share. Okay, there we go. So you'll see something, and that is that all of our source code is actually here now. What? I know, it's awesome. So this is basically what we're using right now, right? And this is the source code that it's going to be interacting with. And yeah, so this is basically what we're working on right now. We're able to actually, we built our AI model, or we didn't build anything. We're mostly just doing an API call, but we were able to get our API model, and now we have it up in the cloud, right? So now it is up in AWS, and now we're just going to try and interact with it. So this was essentially the bulk of what we were trying to work on, right? We do need to deploy the API next, right? But once we have the API deployed and it has all the permissions to invoke a Lambda, then we should be able to just get the API URL and then just work with it within a bunch of curl commands. Okay, so let's do that. We have only 15 minutes left, so we might need to go a little bit faster, but we should be able to make pretty good time. And I am sharing my screen. Great. Okay. So again, we did the bulk of the work now, right? That was, I think, the most difficult part of it. But now we just need to actually deploy the API. And for the deployment creation, pretty simple, right? All we need to do is have our API ID over here, or API key, in a create deployment function. So let's do that really quickly. Our API ID is in our secrets file. Grab that. Run. And that's going to take a second. And it just created this new deployment right here. And it shows you the date and time and everything. And let me push my, save this and push it. add commands. And push that. Perfect. So now we've integrated with Lambda and deployed our API. Next, we just need to grant the API gateway permission to invoke Lambda. And then honestly, we should be good after that. And it's just a matter of testing the API and making sure it all works. So let's do that. This is just the adding permission. The function name is GHW. Our statement ID can be anything we want. We want to invoke function. And over here, we have our actual chatbot, right, in US East. So this is location, your account ID, which I had, or I guess I can get again. And API ID, which is over here. Oops. Slash prod slash post slash, I believe it is chatbot. Okay. And let's try and run this, see if it works. Statement action. Okay, so this is what it ended up posting. So it looks like it was, yeah, so it looks like it was successful. It hit the allow. That is good. And let me push this so you all also have access to it. Your function name here, and then your location, Git add commands, git commit dash m, what do we add? Permissions, git push, push. All right, great. So you should all have access to this now. Let me double check that I'm sharing. Great, I am sharing. Okay, so this was basically the hard part, right? This was just adding all of our permissions, creating our deployments, making sure our API works where it's set up. And next step is actually just to test if the API key works or not, right? That is a very important part of this. So let's do that. The API URL is as follows. Let me API URL. This right here. The API ID is going to be from here. So this right here is my API ID. Yours might be slightly different, right? Depending on your location or your API ID. So your location. And then you actually just want to try and test this. So we can do it using a simple curl command. Let's try it. And the API ID that we used was this right here. Content type. And then this should say something like hello from Lambda. See what it says. And missing auth token. Okay, we will fix that in a second. But git add. Okay, it should all be pushed. So this right here is essentially what it should be working like, right? It should essentially run this. So the auth token was missing for some reason. I do need to debug that. But for the most part, if everything did work as planned, this is essentially how it should work, right? You just run this curl command as an example, and it will execute your lambda function.py. In this case, I think it could be because I do not have a Gemini key. Yeah, it's missing the auth token. So what we could do for that actually is go into the this right here, and you can see that there's a small tab. I'm not sharing my screen again. This right here, right? Our AWS instance. And you can see that if you scroll down a little bit, they have a bunch of options, right, for testing and everything of that sort. But we're not going to be going testing. We want to go back to the code, and down here, there's a very small little thing here called environment variables. We just want to click on that and add an environment variable, and then we should be able to set our Gemini API key environment variable right over here. So we can add an environment variable. Our key is going to be this. Our value is going to come from Gemini. If I am able to grab this, copy this. Okay, and then that should be good. We can just save that. And now we have an updated function using that specific environment variable. Let's see if that works. It said it was missing the auth token. Hopefully that fixes it. And that did not fix it. Someone said ask Gemini. This might be the time to ask. Okay, so seeing Amazon Q built into the AWS editor. Yeah, actually, I think so. They just added a bunch of new changes to their editor in here. I know this is like a very new version. They actually ask if you want to go back to the old version as well, but pretty interesting. So you can see over here, it gives you suggestions automatically. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, right now no suggestions, but it's crazy that they're able to actually add it directly into the editor. I know if you use like Google Colab, for example, they technically have Gemini in their editor, but it's nowhere near as good as I think Amazon Q's is right now. It's interesting stuff. Okay, back to trying to figure out why this thing is not working. Let's see if the resource is correct. API resources. Okay, we are running short on time. I will definitely, if we run out of time and am not able to finish this before the end of this stream, I will absolutely try and figure out what is wrong with it. But I do want to call out before you all go to please fill out this right here. I think MLH does ask you all to fill out the Global Hack Week feedback form just to know if like Global Hack Week in general is useful or not, right? So do check that out. If you do have the time, please fill it out. And let's see if we have any other questions. Silver Acid said they did an Amazon hack where Q was the tech they were supposed to show off, and it was pretty mid. I think, yeah, I'm not sure when you did that Amazon hack, but I know like all of these AI companies have just been really ramping up like what they've been working on and all their models too. So I think Amazon Q has had a few updates pretty recently as well. So maybe it's better. I haven't tried it too much. Usually what I use is like Gemini or Claude. I think those are the easiest ones. But you know, more power to you, whichever one you use. Okay. I will stop sharing. I am like basically out of time. I do want to spend this last amount of time just to answer any questions that anyone might have. And I will get this thing working and push everything to GitHub as soon as I'm able to. All right. All right. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's been a bucket list to learn, but it's always been a bit intimidating. Yeah, AWS is very intimidating. There's so much going on. Honestly, I'm still intimidated by some corners of it, right? It has some dark corners here and there, but honestly, I would say just you just need to dive in and figure it out. Um, yeah, all of this, I think that has to do with basically every part of AWS, right? There's a lot to it, but it's really just, picking what specific tool or technology you want to focus on for that moment and then working with that. Few questions. What ways do you recommend taking this chatbot project deeper for learning more? Where can we start to build something similar to character.ai where we can let the user define the chatbot to a certain extent? Okay, so two parts in the questions. What ways do I recommend taking this chatbot project deeper for learning more? I would definitely recommend, first of all, definitely get it working, right? I think it was just an issue with the endpoint in the API. So there's something at the complete end where you can easily sort of fix that. I would also recommend, maybe experimenting with adding more stuff to the Lambda function as well, or adding more functions and see if you can have those interact with each other, right? So that might be interesting. You'll learn a whole lot if you try and get like two completely different things to interact with each other. I feel like integration is usually where you end up learning the most, right? Just because you can easily make a front end, you can easily make a back end. Making the two work together is where you like run into the most issues, but in running into those issues, you also learn the most. So I think definitely try and create something more that has more interactions, right? That would definitely help you learn more. You can also try using, I guess, Amazon Q or a different AI instead of Gemini. Gemini is pretty easy. It's pretty much plug and go. But if you use something that's a little bit more complex, I think you could also learn quite a bit. And then where can you start building something similar to character.ai? Let me check out what character.ai looks like. Character.ai. This is where a user defines the chatbot to a certain extent. I don't know what you mean by let the user define the chatbot. I'm trying to see what character AI does, but right now I'm seeing you can create your own character, customize its voice, its tone, etc. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean or if I'm on a completely different website from the one that you are looking for. So just a user-defined chatbot instance in general. Um, I'd say obviously definitely work with your own chatbots first. And then if you really, really want to do a deep dive into like natural language processing, you could just go right into that and create a chatbot completely from scratch using like actual like natural language techniques, right? That might be really interesting. I know I've done that a couple times actually in different NLP classes. So definitely something to look out for. Uh, if you want to do something where you're really just tuning a chatbot, you can honestly do that with the pre-existing models as well, right? A lot of existing models allow you to fine tune, add like a fine tuning layer. And for that, I would really just recommend looking into the different models and seeing what they do. And then if you're trying to do something where I think in this one, you're combining a lot of different aspects where it has a vision, it has text, it has like voice. For those, you're really going to need a lot more knowledge in each of those individual spaces. So I'd recommend learning one individual space, creating something for that, and then maybe with the end goal of creating something much larger, start learning a different space, and then integrate that into whatever you have going on, and then just keep on doing that over and over again, and that should get you to where you want to be. All right. I am unfortunately at time. Once again, I do want to call out this link, so please do fill that out if you haven't already. But again, it was so great being here. The last couple of hours. Thank you all so much for giving me your time, and hopefully you all learned something new. I will be in the Discord if you have any other questions. So please do reach out if you have any issues, and hopefully I'll see you all at one of my other streams. All right. Bye, everyone.